At 4:16 local time on a quiet spring morning, the world changes. Over southeastern Poland, radar operators at a NATO early warning station detect something that shouldn't exist. A single inbound projectile moving at hypersonic speed. The alert goes out instantly, but the time to impact is less than 90 seconds. There is no negotiation, no delay, no chance for human confirmation. The missile strikes near the industrial city of Lublin, population 340,000. The blast registers at over 200 kilotons. A blinding flash cuts through the dawn sky, visible across borders in Ukraine and Slovakia. In that instant, tens of thousands are gone, the rest awake to a world they no longer recognize. Satellite feeds from European Space Agency and U.S. Strategic Command confirm the worst. A nuclear detonation on NATO territory, the first since 1945. Within minutes, military hotlines between Washington, Brussels, and Warsaw ignite with traffic. The Polish government goes silent, relocating its cabinet to an undisclosed bunker near Krakow. NATO's Article 5 consultation procedures begin before dawn. The United States raises its nuclear forces to DEFCON 2, the highest readiness level seen in generations. But confusion reigns. Russia denies responsibility, claiming the missile was a Ukrainian air defense malfunction. Social media floods with competing claims, fabricated images, and faked videos. Panic spreads faster than information. By sunrise, European cities are in motion. Sirens test. Metro systems fill. Fuel stations overflow. Airports close within hours. Across the continent, civilians refresh their phones, searching for clarity that isn't there. In London, Berlin, and Paris, emergency broadcasts instruct citizens to remain calm, avoid highways, and prepare for possible evacuation zones in Eastern Europe. In the first hour, no one fires back. Yet the world understands. This is no accident. The question now is not who fired first, but how the world will respond. By mid-morning, 12 hours after the strike, Europe begins to seal itself shut. NATO's North Atlantic Council convenes an emergency session beneath Brussels. No cameras, no press, no phones. Inside, the alliance faces a decision unseen in modern history, whether to treat the detonation as an act of war or a catastrophic accident. Publicly, leaders urge restraint. Privately, mobilization orders spread like wildfire. Germany initiates Operation Shield Wall, activating air defenses from Bavaria to the Baltic. France disperses its nuclear submarines. The United States begins the transatlantic surge. Stealth bombers depart from Missouri, and Diego Garcia under radio silence. In Warsaw, the sky is black with smoke. Fire crews wearing improvised radiation suits, battle flames that won't die. Hospitals in Krakow overflow with burn victims and radiation sickness cases. Every ambulance route is jammed. In nearby villages, Geiger counters scream into the red. The Polish president issues a single-sentence broadcast before vanishing underground. We have suffered a nuclear strike. We will endure. Across Europe, panic mutates into paralysis. Internet networks crash under record demand. Supermarkets limit purchases. Trains out of Eastern Europe fill with refugees and soldiers in equal measure. In Prague and Vienna, churches open their basements as improvised shelters. In London, the Prime Minister addresses the nation, eyes hollow, voice steady. We do not yet know the scale of this attack, but the United Kingdom will stand with our allies. Prepare to remain indoors for the next 72 hours. Markets collapse before closing. Oil breaches $200 a barrel. Gold doubles overnight. But beyond the numbers lies a simpler truth. The illusion of safety is gone. By nightfall, the first fallout patterns drift westward. Invisible, odorless, unstoppable. Europe has entered its longest night. The second day begins without sunrise. A dense metallic haze settles over Eastern Europe, turning the air into shadow. Communications across the Polish border region collapse. Radiation levels in Lublin exceed Chernobyl's by a factor of 10. Drones from NATO reconnaissance wings orbit silently, mapping destruction no human eye can yet see. Inside NATO command centers, uncertainty is lethal. Intelligence intercepts hint at Russian troop movements along the Kaliningrad corridor. But Moscow insists its forces remain defensive. China calls for restraint. The United Nations Security Council meets in New York, half the seats empty, translation headsets idle, silence hanging heavier than debate. Meanwhile, civilians in Poland and Western Ukraine begin the long march west. Roads are choked with cars, engines dead, fuel gone, children wrapped in blankets. Volunteer convoys from Germany and Czechia drive eastward, carrying iodine tablets and medical kits, defying government orders to stay back. In America, disbelief turns to dread. New York Stock Exchange remains closed for a second day. Airports implement silent emergency protocols. Citizens wake to sirens, not alarms, but tests, reassurance rituals, to make the unthinkable feel distant again. Yet everyone knows the world's clock is ticking closer to midnight. The U.S. president appears from a fortified press room. His words are deliberate, weighted. An attack on one is an attack on all. We will respond, but we will not rush. Analysts call it the most dangerous pause in human history. A full 24 hours of military stillness, where every radar blip could trigger the end. Across command bunkers, soldiers sit beside launch consoles, staring at screens that could rewrite civilization. No further strikes come that day, but the world now breathes differently. Shallow, careful, aware that the air itself may no longer be safe. 48 hours after the strike, the world stands balanced between retaliation and restraint. The Polish countryside remains a landscape of ruin. Roads scorched, forests burning with invisible radiation, skies thick with a gray, unnatural dawn. Satellite images show the city of Lublin reduced to a crater half a kilometer wide. The blast radius has erased neighborhoods, highways, and schools. The population that once filled them has vanished from the record of living history. Across Europe, borders remain sealed. Refugee convoys are halted at checkpoints where soldiers wear masks and dosimeters instead of flags. Food convoys move east under military escort, while humanitarian corridors become uncertain lines drawn through radioactive air. The European Union announces a full-scale civil emergency. The euro plunges. Panic buying begins in every capital. Supermarkets ration salt, batteries, and bottled water. Within 2 days, the illusion of control collapses. NATO leaders reconvene under intense pressure from member states demanding action. The United States presents satellite data showing that the missile originated from a Russian launcher near Smolensk. Russia denies it and calls the evidence fabricated. The Kremlin accuses Ukraine of staging the detonation to provoke global war. No one believes anyone else. Diplomacy has turned to theater. By the afternoon of the third day, NATO mobilization reaches levels unseen since the Cold War. 50,000 troops are deployed eastward. Strategic bombers begin continuous patrols over the Atlantic. Submarines vanish from ports and reappear nowhere on radar. Airspace above Eastern Europe becomes a layered maze of aircraft, drones, and missiles on standby. In Washington, the president signs an executive order authorizing proportional readiness. The phrase is ambiguous, deliberately so. It gives the United States authority to act, but leaves timing undefined. In Moscow, state television declares that any Western strike will be met with a mirror response. China calls for restraint, but quietly activates its own military alert systems. The world watches the clock move closer to a confrontation everyone can see and no one can stop. By nightfall on the third day, every government statement sounds like an echo of the last. Words have lost their power. The only thing left that matters is what happens next. Whether one command, one nervous radar officer, or one misunderstood signal will turn tension into annihilation. 72 hours after the nuclear strike on Poland, the world exists in suspension. No new missiles have flown, yet nothing feels stable. Europe is divided into zones of silence, each cut off by fear and fallout. Trains carrying refugees have stopped running, their engines seized by dust. Villages near the blast zone are deserted, patrolled only by drones that measure the invisible poisons drifting across fields and rivers. The air smells faintly of iron and rain. In Berlin, Paris, and London, civil defense centers broadcast identical messages. Stay indoors, conserve power, avoid travel. Across the Atlantic, Americans line up at gas stations and pharmacies, watching their phones for alerts that never come. For the first time in generations, the phrase World War III trends across every language simultaneously. It is no longer speculation, it is vocabulary. Global markets remain frozen, cargo ships idle in ports. Satellites continue to record the slow spread of radiation across Central Europe. The skies over Poland shimmer faintly at night, illuminated by dust particles that used to be homes. International air corridors over the region are permanently closed. What was once a country has become a warning. Inside NATO command, debate fractures. Some argue for a retaliatory strike, others for a diplomatic freeze. Intelligence analysts warn that any attack, even limited, could trigger a cascade of launches that ends civilization within an hour. The United States, Britain, and France begin drafting separate contingency plans, signaling a quiet unraveling of unity. In Moscow, officials speak of peace, while military convoys continue to move west. In Washington, satellites track them, but no order comes. For 3 days, the world has held its breath. On the fourth, it begins to realize that holding it forever is impossible. When historians look back on this week, if there are historians left to do so, they will not see a moment of decisive victory or loss. They will see hesitation, the pause before collapse, the silence that followed one explosion and preceded everything that came after. The first 72 hours did not destroy the world. They merely showed how close it already was to ending.